Shalom, or hello again, everybody. As always, this is Arak Bar. I want to thank y'all for tuning in, subscribing to the page, looking at the channel. Today, I have a very special, unique, something I've never done before. I'm actually going to have a conversation slash debate with a brother of mine. Yes, I said brother. This is my Gentile brother from known for a very, very long time. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Victor. I don't know what else to say.
So this is Victor. So like I said, this is very impromptu. I haven't done it before, but I was kind of just curious. In the comment section, go ahead and leave a like or comment. Let me know what you think of it. But before we get into it, Vic, go ahead and tell everybody. We already told everybody your name, but tell everybody what your, in a quick blurb, what is your spiritual belief or understanding?
Let's see. I am, I guess what you call as an agnostic, and I believe in something, but I don't know what it is specifically. Before,
speak up a little bit louder, just to make sure everybody.
Before I didn't know, or I didn't believe in anything. I was more of an atheist, I guess you would call it, but that just didn't make sense to me. So, I'm definitely more open-minded in something in a higher entity or spirituality, whatever you want to call it. I just don't know what it is, and sometimes I just need to see it, and that's where I'm at. So okay. I'm open to anything.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming on the show today. Like I said, if we like this, I might have you start doing this a lot more often. But essentially, like I said, Vic, so he's used to being atheist, which means he didn't believe. Now he's agnostic. He has a belief, but just doesn't necessarily quantify it or know exactly how to describe it, what it is. So for those of you who have subscribed to my channel already, know that I have a book called SeekingTruth30. It's just a lesson book with a lot of, or almost all of my lessons that I've gone into. Today, so what I want to do is focus on one of my lessons called Planets Don't Exist. And I want to go through the lesson and then get Vic's interpretation of it. Yeah, his interpretation right there with his NASA symbol. Do you actually know what?
No, I don't. Don't even.
I won't go into that yet.
Just to let you know, I'm the average Joe. I'm not the typical Asian guy that's super smart. Just kidding. No,
I told him to leave his glasses off. I told him to leave his glasses off. Okay.
But I have no background in science or anything. Only thing that I know about science is what I learned in school.
So like, have you been to college?
College.
So,
yes.
So he's got, college. How old are you?
I am 35.
35. So 35 years young, been around for a while, been to college, but do you have a degree?
Yes, associate's degree in Homeland Security.
Okay, Homeland Security. So Earth, Homeland, maybe you got security in Earth. I don't know.
Sure, I don't know. Whatever. It just computed very well with the Marine Corps. So
like I said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through just this lesson. If Vic wants to comment on anything, which I'd like for him to, and then we'll just have a conversation and see where it goes. All right. So I'll start off with my commentary. Physical planets don't exist. The basic scientific definition of a planet is a celestial body that is in orbit around the sun. There are other formal specifications, but that's the short answer. According to science, there are at least 8 planets in our solar system: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Now, supposedly, over the course of a few million years, dust particles and gases that were floating around space began to clump together as gravity pulled them together, and thus planets were formed. Despite the fact that no average person has ever been to or physically seen any planet, our government and education systems have gone through great extraordinary lengths to prove that planets do exist. Yes, we have had astronauts claim to have flown around in space and land on the moon. And we have seen video footage and all of these fancy mathematical and scientific formulas to suggest that there is something else out there. But what if that's all another lie? So, Vic, first I want you to comment. First, obviously, you believe that planets exist, right?
Yes, I do believe planets exist. Let me take. What is your take on planets, first of all?
So obviously, this is going to go into it, but okay, in the short answer, I don't believe that another celestial body or physical body outside of Earth exists in our universe. I believe that God, the Most High, created one planet, and that is Earth. And the planets that are being that people say exist, that science says exist, are actually fallen angels that scientists promote to be planets. So when you're talking about planets, you're actually talking about fallen angels. So Satan wants us to continue to talk about planets to get us to inadvertently worship fallen angels.
Okay. All right.
Have you ever heard that before?
No, and that's a very far-fetched. I don't want to say story, but I guess
say
belief or history that you've read. Okay, so
and I believe that because of the Bible. So why do you believe planets do exist?
I studied them in my classes. I've done astronomy, so I've actually seen Jupiter with my own eyes on the telescope. Unless you're telling me they put a fake picture of Jupiter in it, but we actually found the degrees, and at night I even saw the 4 moons that actually orbit Jupiter, which was very breathtaking, actually. So
when you said you saw the 4 moons, so you saw
the moon.
Like, what did you see? Can you explain what you saw?
I saw Jupiter. I actually saw.
So what did Jupiter look like?
Look like a round planet. Circular. It has its bands of where the storms surround the planet. So you can actually see the individual bands moving each direction, and I can actually see the little moons that orbit around Jupiter.
And what telescope were you looking at or through? Do you know?
Man, I don't know, man. This was in college.
So was this a fancy? Could an average person go out and buy this telescope, or?
I wouldn't say. Well, maybe if they had the money for it. It wasn't like a industrial type of telescope, but it was a very high-end telescope that could be programmed to find the planets and the coordinates of every star or whatever
So it was a telescope. Was it hooked up to a computer?
Not hooked up to a computer.
So when you say program, how was it programmed?
I think it was programmed in itself where I can't tell you honestly. Okay. I do not know. So I'm just gonna be lying out of my butt doing this if I was saying that it was hooked up.
But you looked through a telescope and you saw something.
Observed the teacher put in the coordinates where Jupiter was at that time and time of month, place, wherever location, and it moved and it found the planet. So and then all of us as students looked through the telescope.
Okay.
And draw diagrams and all sorts of stuff. So that's what I have. I can't.
Hey,
yeah. So
we believe what we see. I can't argue with that. So I won't argue with that, but I will just go into what the scriptures say. All right. So I want to go into the first scripture. Obviously, the scriptures come from out of the Bible. I'm going to read from 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 20. Also, like I said, there's something else that I said in my reading if you wanted to comment or rebuttal on anything.
Yeah.
So this is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 20. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called. All right. So that's the scripture. My commentary to that: we are supposed to avoid the empty discussions of useless matters that go against the teachings of the Most High's word. The word science in this verse is number G1108 in the Strong's Concordance. And I'm saying this for Vic. I'm sure a lot of my listeners know what the Strong's Concordance is. It's basically Webster's translation for the Bible. I'm saying Webster as in I'm comparing it to Webster's dictionary.
Okay.
So obviously we know the English Bible that we read was not originally written in English. So the words were originally written either in Hebrew or Greek. So you can use a Strong's Concordance to go into the actual definition of the words that were written in English, because sometimes they were loosely translated. Okay. So in this verse, the word science, going back to the actual word, is the original Greek word written there was gnosis, and it means knowledge or understanding. These so-called scientists today don't have the knowledge or understanding of the truth when it comes to the Most High's creation. That's why the majority of scientists are atheists, because they ignore or try to compete with the Most High, with what the Most High said. Let's look into the Bible and see what the Most High said about creation and planets. Anything you wanna?
No. Keep
No.
going.
Okay. I'll pause. I'll come back to that. Next scripture then I'm going to go to is coming from the book of Genesis, chapter 1. I'm going to read verses 1 through 5. In the beginning, God created... Actually, I am going to pause on that. Before I can... What do you believe about the Bible? As in, do you believe in the Bible?
You know, I have no objection. It's hard to say because I'm not religious, obviously, but I do believe in a spiritual thing. So I would like to believe in some of these stories, but I also will question them. How about that? So
Fair enough.
I like to question everything. So, I mean, that's where I'm at. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Going back to Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. All right, my commentary. Here we see on the first day of creation that the earth was in a gas form. Water has three different forms: gas, liquid, and solid. The deep, referred to in this verse, today we call space. In the beginning, there was nothing but gas floating around in outer space. In the midst of that chaos, God created light, but the light was not the sun. The sun was created later. All right, so I'm going to pause on there. So, because obviously we're going into, if we're going to talk about planets, we need to talk about creation. So what is your belief on how the universe came into existence?
No, you're going to get me on this one. So it's only a theory of the Big Bang. So it's even hard for me to, I would even question the Big Bang, right? Mm-hmm. Because there is the only scientific thing I could recall in school or TV, right, is that everything was at a single point in time with all matter and light and everything that the universe created is from the single point. But there's so many like theories. Like there's the membrane theory where there's multiple I'm butchering this, but multiple universes, and it's a fabric and it actually moves, and once these fabrics touch, boom, that creates a singularity, which creates a universe. So in my thinking of what the universe is, if I believe in infinity, so like if the universe is infinite, I believe that everything has happened infinite amount of times, and we've had this conversation, not particularly us right now, but there's probably been other
universes
and other Antonios that's having this exact conversation at this exact moment, or even a delay at infinite amount of times. Okay. Does that make sense? Like, we've done this, and I've done this with one arm, you know what I'm saying, or missing arm, or I could be a different species or whatever. It's been done infinite amount of times forever. So you believe in multiverses? It's okay. Like, yeah, multiverses. There's so many theories there, so it's very hard. What I'm curious is more of who wrote that. So you're talking about who wrote Genesis? Who wrote Genesis? Yeah.
So that was written by Moses. Okay. I don't want us to rabbit trail, so I'll come back to that. But to answer your question, yeah. The first 5 books of the Bible were written by Moses. Okay. I forgot where I was going with that question. Yeah. Oh, so do you think? Would you say you don't have a solid belief in how the universe was created, though? I would say, yeah. There's nothing you can't say. This is what happened. No, right? Because if I did that, then that'd be just being more narrow-minded and just being. I only believe in this theory, which hasn't been proven yet. So obviously, it's just a theory. But I would lean more towards that theory than. So my question that I was going to lead up to that is it possible that the Bible's interpretation of how the universe was created could be true.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, obviously. Like I think during that time, whoever, when Moses wrote this, or even was told about this, my version or scientific version is that there was a Big Bang, right? But that Big Bang could be God creating the universe.
Gotcha.
So,
and that's what I was getting at, but I'll pause.
Like I'm open-minded now.
You are open-minded, and I appreciate that. All right, my next scripture, Genesis again, chapter 1, verses 6 through 8. It reads, "And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. And in the evening and the morning were the second day." My commentary: we see that God created a separation. Today, we call this the ozone layer. Everything above the ozone layer is heaven, not space. I also want to point out that there is here the repetition of how each new day ends with the evening, then morning. This is showing that a biblical day begins in darkness, nighttime first, then daytime. Question, comment?
Yeah, I'm just curious. So you're saying everything above the ozone layer is heaven?
It's heaven.
So do you even believe in space?
So, yes, I believe in space. I just call space heaven. So
we went past me and you took a trip past the ozone layer. Will we be in heaven?
yes, but there's layers to heavens. So there's actually, the Bible speaks that there's multiple different layers to heaven.
Yeah, and are these layers physical, or are they just transcendent where we can't get there unless we...
No, yes, at certain points, it becomes only you can get to the next level of heaven by going into a spiritual realm. So there's different realms.
So physically, we can never get there. We can never go to heaven. Physically, like right now.
No. We can go to a certain level, because even so, for example, even outer space, not outer space, the sky in the scriptures even refers to that being the heavens. So that's still a level of heaven. So the sky itself here on earth is a level.
Level one heaven.
Exactly.
Level 2 heaven.
And then past the ozone layer, when you get into outer space, is another level of heaven.
Okay.
But then the higher levels of heaven, where the angels and a lot of the Most High's creation, and where he sits on his throne, is in a higher level of heaven. But again, we can't get to certain levels unless you're in a spiritual realm.
Okay.
So I don't believe in in other galaxies. I'll say that in other galaxies or other universes. Mm-hmm. I believe that everything that was created, God created at the same point.
Other galaxies, so like.
If you say other galaxy, I would only say that that's another dimension of a different heaven. I don't think that they are operating on another physical realm. I'll say that. I don't think there's a separate physical realm. Because I think when I normally hear scientists or people talk about other galaxies, they're saying that there's another physical place outside of this.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that.
All right. Do you believe that we are in a galaxy?
I believe, so the Bible doesn't use the term galaxy. So so the term galaxy, I understand. Yeah, that means
like our Milky Way galaxy, like our spiral galaxy. We're like right here. Mm-hmm. If we go far enough, we could hit another part of the galaxy. So that doesn't exist. Like the center of the galaxy or center of our galaxy is not a big.
I believe the center of our galaxy or existence is Earth.
Oh, Earth is.
I believe Earth is the center. Yep. And yes, there is an infinite amount of space outside of that.
Yeah.
As far as space, but you will never travel out in a billion years and hit another Earth, another planet. Correct.
So what about the sun?
What about the sun?
Can we go to the sun?
Yes.
All right. And we could go to the moon.
Yep. Which we're about to get into that next one.
Can we go to Mars?
No.
Why can't we go to Mars if we could go to the moon?
The Bible will swing.
Let's go.
The Bible's going to read it. All right?
Let's go. Let's get it.
Any comment about what I read so far?
Keep going.
All right. So again, we're going to go back to the book of Genesis, chapter 1, read verses 9 through 13. So again, the Bible's interpretation. So God created everything, right? So far, he's created and everything he created in the beginning everything in the beginning was created in all particles. Even science says that we all came from particles or atoms from water. So everything was gas. Okay, and then out of that gas he created Earth. Is that word? No. First he created the separation. So he separated the outer space to one lump sum, which we're gonna see into that. That's gonna be Earth.
When you say gas, like, are we talking about elements too? Like, are
Yes.
we talking about like carbon, oxygen?
Yes.
Okay, so
God uses elements.
okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay. So Genesis chapter 1, verses 9 through 13. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And God called the land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called sea. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, and herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after its kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, herb yielding seed after its kind, and tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after its kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day. My commentary. Here we see that God made the waters Here we see that God made the waters under the heaven gather together in order to make earth. He didn't say anything about the waters or gases in heaven coming together. I also need to point out here that this process did not take a few million years, which I'll get into next point.
All right.
Any question or comment?
No, you're just basically saying that God made
So
the universe
all
in 7 days, and each day he did something.
and he's explaining how everything was created. So in the beginning, all the elements to create everything was created on day 1.
Okay.
Day 2, he separated elements.
Okay.
And then day 3, out of the elements within the firmament, or the ozone layer as we call it, he created earth.
Okay.
So far there's according to the scripture, there's not been any discussion about planets, right?
No.
All right. I'm going to go into the book of 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 8. And the reason why I'm going there is, according to science, or to what you believe, how long did it take for this process to happen? For earth to be created?
I think it was, oh man, I want to say, was it 6.5 was the dinosaurs? So what, 10 billion years?
I've heard that number.
I think. Should we fact check that?
I'll fact check it with the Bible.
Wait, Bible says it's what, 10,000 years?
But even if we fact check it, would it be fair to say that if I ask one scientist, that one scientist might say 10 billion, but if I ask another scientist, he might tell me 65 million? Would you say that science is inconsistent with their answer?
The only reason I think that they wouldn't say 65, this 65 is around 6.5 billion years, is probably around where the dinosaurs were around. So obviously Earth was here way before that. So
4.5 billion years.
damn, we was wrong as hell.
So we have a fact checker, a Google fact checker on the side.
4.5 billion years.
Google currently says 4.5 billion.
Billion?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So Google currently says 4.5
Oh
billion.
man, sorry, I take it back. It's 65 million years is where the dinosaurs were. She said 4.5 was billion was the Earth was once created.
Would you be willing to say or admit that answer that Google has was a different answer 2 years ago?
I would say, I don't know.
I believe through my research that I've seen, every time I ask a different person this, they change the answer.
All right.
So that was all I'm saying is it's an inconsistent answer, which I can understand. That's a very long period away. No one was there.
But how big of a gap?
I've heard millions and then billions. That's a huge gap.
I'm used to billions for the Earth. So consistently, what I was taught was that is billions. Like
I've heard 9 billion and 10 billion, and I've also heard up to 60 some odd billion. I've even heard 180 billion. So my thing is, when I talk to scientists or
I think
people that have gone to school for science, that I just normally get a very inconsistent answer.
Yeah, and then also, like, which scientists are we asking? Are we asking, like, actual scientists in that field, or are we talking about scientists?
General.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And maybe some of those scientists don't know.
Don't know.
They just shot off a number like I just did, and you just did. And obviously I didn't know, and I had it wrong. So it's 65 million years was around the dinosaur. 4.5 is the universe, or not the universe, Earth.
So whenever anybody, whether it be a scientist or a Christian
honestly,
or whoever,
to be honest, in my position right now, I would lean towards that Earth was created 4.5, whatever Google said, right? And that's what I lean more towards. So we'll just go off from that because I could go further and kind of be more open-minded, but I think it'll sidetrack a little bit.
All right. So for the sake of not rabbit trailing, we'll say that Vic believes that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old because Google said so.
No, man. That's not so bad.
No findings, but because that's what Google said. But we'll come back to that.
Based on like scientific stuff,
other
scientific,
scientific.
Okay, research studies and like just how you research your shit. I'm pretty sure there's scientific. If I research it, it would back up.
I'm poking at him a little bit.
Yeah,
you know, it's all love here. It's all love. It's all love.
It's because the internet says so, so it must be true. All right.
All right. So I'm gonna see what the Bible says. All right. 2 Peter chapter 3 and 8. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. From the beginning of creation until earth was... So I'm sorry, this is my commentary now. From the beginning of creation until earth was completed was only 3 days with the Most High. That's equivalent to about 3,000 years, not a few million or billion years like science suggests. Have you ever heard that before?
Yeah, I have. Because I've actually have conversations with other people. I'm like, you telling me in 7 days or whatever. So like, how long is a day? You know.
Did anyone ever show you that scripture about 1,000 years?
Eventually, that's why I know that.
Okay.
Time is different. If I can understand that if you're a God, time might be different, and time is relative. So his time, one day to him, it could be 1,000 years towards us. So.
That's funny because the conversation we recently had about time being relative,
and that's why I'm not opposed to it.
But we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that.
Yeah, okay.
On a separate note. All right, I'm going to continue reading out the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verses 14 through 19. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven." Okay, so we're going back to creation, right? And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven, and to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw it, and it was good. The evening and the morning was the 4th day. My commentary. Here we see that the Most High created the sun, the moon, and stars, all for the purpose of ministering to the earth. This proves that earth is the center of the universe, not the sun.
Well, in science, technically, anywhere you are in this universe is the beginning of the universe. There's no beginning nor end
of infinity.
You can't pinpoint where the Big Bang happened. I think that's what I was told. The Big Bang, when it happened everywhere instantly at once. So where we're at is the beginning of the universe, and if I step over there, that's technically the beginning of the universe also.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, but
because there's an explosion that shoots outward.
Yeah, but it's because everything was at one point, right? Mm-hmm. So if everything is at one point and it opened up at one point, the theory is that anybody in that point, even though they're over here and
a portion of them.
Yeah, it's just, and I'm butchering this up, but that's what I was told. So, anyways, let's say
that's a good philosophy, but that part doesn't make sense to me. Just on a logical level, I understand why someone could reach for that.
Yeah,
it's saying because we all came from one
thing, and then you're exploring, and you're thinking it's expanding, right? Mm-hmm. Which I think they do kind of. Everything's moving away, but it's like I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but go ahead, let's go. Let's just skip this.
So again, so
you're saying
the biblical portion. So far,
yeah.
Again, the question is, could the Bible's interpretation be true? So far, God created everything in the beginning.
Yeah,
out of gas.
Yeah. If I'm
separated.
being and not sleeping open minded.
Yeah.
It's very
so far.
possible.
So far, the Bible makes sense, and science does not contradict what the Bible's even saying, or does it? From what we've read so far, does science explain, or does the Bible contradict science in this matter so far? I'm sorry, I'm saying this wrong. So far, from what we're reading, does science say that's not how it could have happened?
It's hard. That's gonna be hard because it's very possible that God could do this.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna say that it is very possible because we don't have the facts where all this started, right? I mean, we could go back to the point, but then for whatever reason, it all leads to this Big Bang theory. But this Big Bang could have happened naturally, or God could have created this, right? I mean,
So you said it could happen naturally, as in like it wasn't
it could be
planned?
like what I was talking about, two different universes, and the membrane hits each other. Because if you think of just like curtains, and this is a universe, so this is just a theory, obviously, also. So these two membranes, and then when they touch, it creates that singularity, and it creates that universe. All that energy that it once it touches, boom, it creates a universe, and it's constantly, what it's saying is constantly doing it. So right now, it could be another universe being created right now, boom, and boom, and then
According to that singularity, and this is a question,
Yeah.
is that all? If that's true, is there an intelligent design behind it, or is it just coincidence?
I think in science, it is what it is. It's just
It's accident.
It's accident.
It's not planned. There's no design.
There's no design. Yeah. I
So,
think yeah.
If I was to parallel that, if I took all of the elements or functions to build a computer and put them in a bag and just shook it up, over 1 billion years, would a computer come out?
Possible.
Really?
Yes.
That is a stretch.
I know it's a stretch.
That is a stretch.
I know it's a stretch. But you're saying, we're talking about infinite amount of time? Or are we talking about infinite?
Infinite. Yeah, sure.
Infinity.
Infinity.
Meaning that every single possibility can happen.
Yeah, sure.
So you shaking that bag?
To the point where an intelligent design came out.
An actual computer comes to a...
Yes.
Whatever consequence, like the ratio of you being able to do that is very low. But we're talking about infinite. That means forever. That means it probably has happened, and not just had happened. It's happened infinite amount of times.
So you're more inclined to believe that versus there just being a designer that made the computer.
I'm saying I believe that, obviously, because we've made computers. But we're talking about...
Obviously, I'm paralleling.
Right,
Yeah.
and we're talking about infinite. See, this is why I'm thinking differently. We're talking about infinite, so it's like, what's the chances of, if we went to a pile of rocks, right? And they had red rocks, black rocks, white rocks, just different colored rocks, and you look for, what's the chances of me finding a black rock? All right, boom, there's a black rock. All right, there's another black rock. All right, what's the chances of me finding a black rock with a red rock? All right, this is a pile of rocks. I'm like, oh yeah, there's one right here. Not as many as individual black rocks or white rocks or red rocks, but for a pair of black and red rocks, there's probably going to be some, but not as many, right? Now, how many are there going to be a black, red, and white rock sitting next to each other? Probably slimmer than the red and black rocks, because the ratio or possibility is slimmer. But eventually, I could probably find a couple of those in the same pile. So what I'm saying is that you shaking that bag, infinity, it might end up coming together, screwing somehow, and then screwing together I know it's a
I'm
far-fetched.
gonna let you have that. I'm gonna let you have that.
We're
We're gonna agree to disagree on that.
No, we're talking about infinite, right? Infinite. We're talking about infinite. So infinite meaning that forever, eternity, like what we discussed about heaven being eternal, I guess life or whatever.
Yeah,
just eternal, right? Meaning forever, it doesn't end. Father time does not exist because it just keeps going, right? So it's like
it's possible
because what is the chance of you? I don't know, like learning to juggle if you have infinite amount of times. Like if you have infinite time, will you end up learning how to juggle? Probably. Now, it's
I feel like that's different than designing, but I understand what you're saying though. I understand.
Like, what's the chances of a hurricane coming by, whipping up a car, and disassembling it and putting it back together, right?
Yeah, there you go.
And it's like it's slim to almost none, right? But infinite means that there's infinite amount of possibilities, infinite amount of time. There could be one day where
a hurricane
picks up,
goes to a scrap yard,
and builds a fucking car. So it's possible. Is it likely? In our time, hell no, probably not. We probably would rarely see it, right? But it is possible. And like I said, if it's possible, that means it's happened. If there's an infinite amount of time, that means it's happened infinite amount of times.
All right, I'm gonna let you have that one. I disagree, but I understand the train of thought though. All right,
agree to disagree.
So we're almost through here. We're almost kind of.
Oh my gosh!
Kind of, sort of. A lot of rabbit trailing. All right. Going back to my commentary. To summarize the rest of this chapter, on day 5, God created fish and birds. On day 6, he created beast and man. On day 7, he rested.
Whoa, what's a beast?
Animals.
Just animals?
Yeah.
All right. Not like a centurion or like, you know.
That's a whole nother conversation. But we'll say all the land-dwelling animals. Because
dinosaurs.
Yes. Well, no, sorry. No, not apologize. Not dinosaurs. Dinosaurs happened. That's another discussion. That was not, but for the sake of, the listeners.
Just for planets.
For the sake, but just to answer that, since he brought it up, dinosaurs did exist, but they were not creations of God. They were genetic modifications from Satan. But again, maybe we'll have this conversation in another video.
Another episode.
Again, if you get my video or get my book, I have a lesson on that as well. All right. Going back to my commentary. Then that is the end of creation. So from the beginning to the end of creation, there was never a mention of anything called a planet. There is only earth and everything on earth. Then in heaven, there is the sun, moon, and stars, which were all created specifically for earth. The question is, where do we get the idea of planets from? The word planets is mentioned only one time in the Bible. All right. So now we're going to go into where the word planet is in the Bible. Okay.
And where it comes from?
Yes.
The meaning?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to go to the book of 2 Kings, chapter 23, verse 5. I'm sorry, before I get into that, so far, again, do you agree that in the creation, in the biblical answer, that all could be true? And that planets were not mentioned so far when God created everything?
Yeah, based on what you told me, yes.
Okay.
That is very possible, obviously, I think, if I'm looking at it in your point of view.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is the book again of 2 Kings, chapter 23, verse 5. And he put down the idolatrous priest, whom the king of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places of the cities of Judah, and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burn incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to planets, and all the hosts of heaven. Here's my commentary. When Israel began to mix with other nations, they began to follow after their pagan gods. Various forms of Baal worship include the worshiping of the sun, moon, and planets. Because we know that God didn't create planets, what exactly were people worshiping? So have you ever heard of Baal, that term or that name?
Yeah, I think I've heard it as Baal.
Baal.
Mm-hmm. I just know he's the only the reason why I know who Baal or Baal is because I played video games and he was depicted as some sort of demon.
Got it.
Right? Some sort of evil creature, demon, whatever. That's from Diablo.
Diablo, yeah.
Diablo 2.
Diablo talks about a lot of Nephilim.
Yeah. And the new Diablo coming out 4 is going to be about Lilith. So.
Oh man.
Yeah, she's going to be the new.
We're definitely have to have another conversation.
Yeah.
So far we see the word planets, right? So that's the only time that the word planet was mentioned in the Bible.
Was that?
That was 2 Kings, chapter 23, I believe. Chapter 23, verse 5.
Yeah.
And again, obviously we're reading out of my book, but in my book I have copy and pasted scripture specifically from the scripture. So I know we're holding my book and not the Bible here, but if it's in my book and it's color coded, it's directly a quote from the scriptures.
Okay. I believe you on this. Let's go.
All right. Acts chapter. So now we're gonna move to the New Testament. Acts chapter 4.
Hold up. Before you New Testament, Old Testament, you gotta explain to me what is the Old Testament, what's the New Testament? Because what I am thinking is that the Old Testament is the old Bible with like Genesis, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Right. And then the New Testament was a bunch of priests who got together and nitpicked whatever they wanted and put it into a book. Is that correct or not correct?
Not fully correct. So the Old Testament is it's called the books of the prophets. So it has the Torah, which is the first 5 books of Moses.
Okay.
Then it has Psalms and Proverbs and Job, and it also has the writing of the prophets. So you have writings like Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel. All of these were men in ancient Israel that were known as prophets. So a lot of their writings are prophetic writings, and they were also a lot of leaders in the Israelite times.
Okay.
The New Testament consists of writings that typically took place around the time of Christ, and or shortly after. A lot of it was written by Paul.
Are these like the people that follow Jesus?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are all definitely people that follow Christ.
Okay. So they can be biased.
Sure.
Okay.
I see where you're going.
Yeah, I was just curious because like if someone is following somebody, they could highlight the highs or they could exaggerate. But we're going off subject. I'm just curious. Want to put that in my head. But these were the prophets that followed Jesus or saints?
Disciples.
Disciples.
Because let me not say disciples because Paul was not a disciple. Okay. So you can use the term saints.
All right, saints. All right. Just to let you guys know, I am not, again, fully religious, so it's only information that I retain by talking to other people or just stories or History Channel that I'll watch or something like that. So I'm not a scientist nor a historian, so don't hold me against all what I say.
But, no, you're good, man.
But I'm here to learn, so this is the whole point of this conversation. So I'm open-minded and into knowing what my brother Antonio wants to share with me. So let's go.
And to also just to elaborate what a lot of people say as far as the Catholic Church or priests put together is referred to as the canon.
Okay.
So the canon is what the Bible is today. But the Bible that it is today has a lot of things that were taken out. For example, the Apocrypha.
Nope.
So the Apocrypha is a list of 14 books that were originally in the 1611 King James Version Bible, but the Catholic Church took it out.
Why?
Because there's a lot of prophetic things that were in there that shows their deception. It shows that they would have taken a false image from Europe and bring over to the Western world to worship as Christ. That's mentioned specifically in the Apocrypha.
So
they're trying to hide and deceive the truth that's in the Bible. But again, that's a whole nother conversation as well. But my point is there's other writings outside of the Old Testament and the New Testament that are also still biblically inspired or Israelite inspired. The book of Enoch, the book of Jasher, the book of Jubilees.
Okay.
And the Apocrypha. So those are the main ones. But right now we're going to go to the New Testament.
New Testament.
Acts chapter 14, verses 11 through 15. Again, we're still talking about planets. And when the people saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voice, saying in the speech of Lycaonia, "The gods are come down to us in the likeness of men." And they called Barnabas Jupiter, and Paul Mercurius, because he was the chief speaker. Then the priest of Jupiter, which was before their city, brought oxen and garlands unto the gates, and would have done sacrifice with the people. Which when the apostle Barnabas and Paul heard of, they rent their clothes and ran in among the people, crying out and saying, Sirs, why do ye do these things? We are also men of like passion with you, and preach unto you that ye should turn from their vanities unto the living God, which made heaven and earth and the sea and all things that are therein. Now here's my commentary. When the disciples were performing miracles, when the disciples were performing miracles, the people thought that they were gods that fell from heaven. Prior to the disciples doing this, there were already many people who worshiped these so-called planets.
So you're talking about like Greek mythology,
Yep.
Or Roman mythology. They call them Venus, Jupiter. In Greek, it's obviously like the actual like gods' names, like Hades, whatever.
So there's multiple. Exactly. So Greek mythology. Greek mythology is where I'll say in the Western world we're known for worshiping planets or people by the name of planets.
Yeah, but would you say that because people back then are new to science, or
when you say back then, who was new to science?
Like, I guess people in Greek mythology, like obviously their science then is just like maybe alchemy or something like that, right? It's like chemistry,
which is a pretty high level of science,
right? But versus what we have now with technology, like you're saying they're worshiping like planets, right? Which is kind of weird, I think, right? You're worshiping a planet, but then during that time, it makes sense because they don't know what is, like people believed in the rain god and the fire god and this and that. So I mean, you don't believe in a fire god, obviously, right? So you believe in one god, but then back then they did believe god of nature, god of hell, god of heaven, right? They had Zeus, you had god of the sea, you know what I'm saying? So, but then eventually when science comes along, or new science, I guess, I don't know how, I guess new science, and they start actually doing research and stuff, then you kind of realize that there's not really maybe a god of water or a rain god or a nature god, you know what I'm saying?
Got you.
Like even most older, like other countries that are like China or like, they all had multiple gods for multiple things. I don't know where I'm going with this, but
I think I know where you're going. So
like,
I think
what makes
where are these gods coming from?
Yeah,
Maybe.
like they had to put a name to it because they didn't know how it worked, right? Like no one knew how fire worked probably when they first saw fire, but they just thought it's magic, so they're like, it must be a god. Or rain comes from the sky, so they're just like, we don't know where this rain is coming from, so it must be a god. Or if a volcano erupts, damn, we must have pissed off somebody because this volcano fucked us up, you know what I'm saying? Oh, excuse my language, but like, we got rocks and lava thrown at us, and people that survive, they're gonna think they angered somebody, or because they don't, I guess, not as educated maybe. It's hard to say because I can't say, like, at the time maybe they just didn't know that volcanoes.
It's more like a lack of information.
Yeah, lack of information. Like obviously volcanoes, I want to say obviously, but volcanoes come from moving tectonic plates or pressure that's being built underneath the Earth's crust, and the magma underneath needs to be released, and therefore the closest and the easiest way for magma to come out was a volcano. So it's just bad luck, bad situation. So now, since there's more science and more research and more people doing experiments, now they find out that there isn't really gods, just actual like reasons why these things
there's other
happen.
scientific,
yeah, like why clouds rain. It's the condension of water molecules, and it gets too heavy, therefore it starts to rain, and stuff like that.
So we don't. Our narrator was supposed to keep us on track from rabbit trailing, but to elaborate, the term God in the Hebrew just simply means power or ruler. And the Bible also mentions that there are multiple gods, as in there's multiple different powers, multiple different entities. Angels were also called gods. So according to the biblical interpretation, angels were known as gods as well because they had powers. Elements, all elements, fire, water, all elements are also controlled by an angel itself, which is still a god. So what we're reading here in Acts, we can see that men were being worshipped as gods, and specifically men that fell from heaven. In the Bible, it shows us, and again, that's another lesson, but fallen angels fell from heaven. And these were and we're going to get into that here a little bit later.
Okay.
So there were angels that were once in the heavens with God that disobeyed God, and God kicked them out, along with Lucifer and Satan.
Okay.
And these bad angels or demons were worshipped as gods on earth. Why were they worshipped? Because they had knowledge.
They were performing
miracles, and they had knowledge that man did not know. So men worshiped these fallen angels as gods.
Okay.
And they called these fallen angels planets.
Okay. How about stars? Are stars fallen angels too, or it's just planets?
It's their stars, which we're gonna get to it. That's my point. Because we saw a planet there's no such thing as a planet. There's a star.
Okay.
But the fallen stars are known as planets, and again the Bible's gonna show us that. Because we saw in the beginning, God didn't create planets; He created stars. Yeah. So if there is something else out there in creation,
it's a star.
It's a star.
Okay.
So when you see falling stars or shooting stars, which again we'll get into that, but so far we can see where planets were mentioned in the Old Testament, and with the word planets was only mentioned once, but then we see Jupiter and Mercury.
Right, but those are names that were given to
that were associated with fallen angels.
Fallen angels. Okay.
So Jupiter and Mercury, we can see, were associated with fallen angels.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Going to the book of Acts 19, verse 34. And when the town clerk had appeased the people, he said, "Ye men of Ephesus, what man is there that knoweth not how the city of Ephesians is a worshiper of the great goddess Diana, and the image which fell down from Jupiter?" Commentary. This is an example of an entire city that believed in and worshipped planets. The question still, though, is why. So now we're going to, same thing I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
I'm going to go to the book of Genesis, chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives, all of which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, and they in the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. My commentary: these sons of gods were angels. How can we prove that? So I'm going to prove it. Before I prove it, you have a question about that? Because we see in the book of Genesis, angels came down and slept with
people.
Which
created giants and stuff like that.
Which created giants. Or in the Hebrew tongue, that is Nephilim.
Okay.
We're tracking?
Yeah, we're tracking.
All right. Any comment? Because I know that might have been a lot to take in if you haven't heard that before.
No, I mean, it is what it is. What you told me. There's nothing else I can say. That's what you're telling me.
All right.
This is the information I'm getting, and I'm trying to
soak it in
and try to make sense of it, obviously. And just, go ahead. Keep going.
All right. The book of Job, chapter 1, verses 6 through 7. Now, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and walking up and down in it. My commentary: Only angels present themselves before the Most High. So these sons of God were angels. This also shows that angels operate in heaven and walk on the earth.
Okay.
So earlier, I'm not even sure if this was on camera or not, but we had a conversation about operating in different levels of space or heaven.
Yeah,
so we can see here, this is an example. Angels were operating here on earth, but they also operate in the heavens.
Right. They're allowed to go in between.
And obviously we can't see their interactions, but it's showing that they do both.
Okay.
Going again, the book of Job,
Real quick. These are the good angels that are working.
At this moment?
Yeah, at this moment.
I'm
sorry.
Well, not necessarily at this moment, because we see at this moment, Satan also still had access.
Okay.
And there was a time when Satan got kicked out and he had no more access.
Wasn't he like God's right-hand man at one point?
Yep.
Lucifer,
the light bearer.
Right.
Yep.
And then he ended up doing something and then he got kicked out.
Yep.
Because he's being a bad boy.
That's right.
All right. Clipped his wings, right?
So this is the book of Job, chapter 38, verses 4 through 7. Where wast thou when I laid the foundation of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measure thereof? If thou knowest, or who hath stretched the line upon it, whereupon the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone, when the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Commentary. This was all before man was created. The sons of God were called stars. So we see this scripture is referring to before the foundations of the earth. So before earth was created, stars were in existence.
Yeah. So stars were first before even earth was. All right. Yeah. Rephrase that. I'm sorry.
So I'll read it again. When I laid the foundation of the earth.
Yeah.
And so before then, whereupon the foundations of the earth fastened, and who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted. So we see the correlation. It's saying that the sons of God are stars.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Gonna wrap it up.
All right.
We're gonna go to the last scripture. It's gonna come from the book of Jude, chapter 1, verse 6. And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. Then I'm going to jump down to verse 13. Raging waves of the sea, foaming out of their own chain, wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness and darkness forever. My commentary. The Bible refers to angels that fell as wandering stars. The Greek word for wandering in the scripture is G4107 in the Strong's Concordance. And the word is planets or planetes. And it means a rover or an erratic teacher. And then my final commentary. The book of Enoch, specifically chapter 7 and 8, shows us that these fallen angels were the ones that taught man science and many other things. Because of that, men started to worship these wandering stars as gods. Now, even still to this day, the same spirits are honored and idolized through science. The truth is that they do not physically exist. Saturn, Mercury, Mars, and all of these so-called planets are names of fallen angels that were once worshipped by pagans in Rome and in Greece. That's why at one point we were taught Greek mythology. It came from the real belief that these so-called planets were gods that walked the earth.
Okay, so why do they call them wandering stars again?
So wandering stars.
Yeah. Why
so the term in English it's wandering, but that word is planet or planetes, and it means wandering because they were erratic teachers. Because when these fallen angels fell, they taught man things that man was not supposed to be taught.
Okay.
How to multiple different things, but we'll say how to astronomy, astrology, star things in the heavens. Man wasn't supposed to know or supposed to deal with certain things. Right. How to make war, how to build weapons and things of that those things. Women's makeup, All these things were taught by Azazel, and
Women's makeup, really?
yep, because it was used to trick or deceive mankind.
Okay, so wandering star, only because I think I remember this in class, is that why they called it a wandering star, these planets, is because planets don't follow the constellation, right? Stars that are far out our solar system, because the only star in our solar system is the sun.
I'm sorry, back to say your statement again.
I was saying why, like
You said why were they calling them wandering?
Wandering stars, and what I was taught in school. Yeah, school. Not the internet. Was that they call them wandering stars because in our solar system, planets don't follow the constellation of stars. Like when we, at night, when you see a star, like, you know, the galaxy or whatever, they move in a predictable pattern.
So I was taught that planets do as well in school.
They do.
Okay.
In our solar system, right?
Okay.
They orbit the sun, right? Let's go back. Do you believe the Earth orbits the sun?
Nope.
No.
Believe that the sun orbits the Earth.
Okay, so this is where it's gonna conflict, because what you believe is gonna conflict with what I'm saying. And why people back then were like, that's a wandering star? Because let's face it, back then they didn't have TVs or internet. What they had was look up in the stars, and they didn't have light pollution, so they were able to see very clearly and map out constellations and be able to observe the sky, the night sky, which if you had nothing else to do, you'd be pretty good at it. And you would notice, hey, that star, because in our point of view, a planet wouldn't look like an actual size planet where you can actually see, oh yeah, that's Jupiter or anything like that. It's not going to show. It's going to show like a shining little star. The thing is, since it orbits since we orbit around a sun, right? The path of that planet is not going to be predictable. So when you observe it, it actually does like a weird rotation compared to the stars that are further out, right? The planet. So it looks like this star is just wandering. It's really unconventional, I guess, when they're observing. So therefore, that's why they started studying astronomy, because they were like, what is going on here? And that's why they might have worshipped it, because it was such an odd object that didn't follow everything else. Orion's belt, you can see that. The Big Dipper, you can see that small. That's constant. That's gonna stay there for a really long time. And if I go off subject, eventually the universe will stretch out so far that you wouldn't even be able to see anything, right? But that's billions and billions of years probably. But we'll go back to it. So that's why, like, they call these planets wandering stars. It's because when you observe it, it doesn't follow the constellations. And they wouldn't know that, or you wouldn't know, or I wouldn't know unless we observed it long enough. They're like, wait a minute, this is not actually that far out into space. It's actually in our solar system. And that is why its tracking record is weird. And I wish we could pull up something, but when you observe it, it actually does this weird looping diagram or whatever, or pattern, a looping pattern. So it looked like a wandering star. Therefore, I believe that maybe they're like, oh, there's something different about this star. It must be a god. Let's just worship this. And then they have, and they end up naming it. So thinking that, well, yeah, that's what scientific meaning behind that wandering star means.
Okay, I got you.
So what do you think about that? In that sense, yeah.
I think that is a good scientific answer as to correlate the name wandering star to a planet. So I see science attempt to correlate wandering star to a planet and not to an angel, because by that definition, it's taken away from the fact, oh well, they only called it a wandering star because they only call it wandering, rather, excuse me, because it was moving.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like, I think like astronomy, because it started in Babylon, I'm pretty sure, like that in.
But hold up, with that, because again, the Greek, that even that term, that obviously the language we're speaking is English.
Right.
So the term wandering star in English, wandering just means okay, it's moving, right?
Yeah, it's just moving.
But when we look at the Greek, which was before the English, it was called an erratic teacher. So what were they teaching? It's saying that these stars taught man something.
It might be misconstrued in the sense like it was teaching them science, like because it's so erratic, right? It's just out of the norm. So when they're observing it, they're like maybe not literally teaching them, hey, this is how you make fire, or this is how you do makeup or whatever. But I'm thinking it's teaching them, hey, there's something different about this particular planet / star. Mm-hmm. Right, and they realize, oh, it's a planet. Now, when Galileo made the telescope, he's like, whoa, these are not stars. These are not gases of hydrogen, right? Is it hydrogen? Yeah, hydrogen, mm-hmm. Right? You know, and then exploding and causing fusion. These are actual planets, and they're in our solar system, and that's why. I mean, because in back then, we did believe that the Earth was the center of the universe, that everything else surrounded us. But at the same time, I think that's a very, what's the word I'm talking about, looking for? But like very self-centered.
Proud.
Self-centered? Like...
For mankind to believe that we're the center.
Oh, we are the chosen. We are this, we are that. Everything is revolved around us. Like... I could still believe in a spiritual thing, but I still believe in science and the fact that, yeah, we revolve around the Earth. I mean, the sun, mm-hmm. And that's our solar system. But I wouldn't discount, like, exclude that, like, is it possible that God could have just made our universe or our solar system instead of us being the center of the universe or our center of our solar system? You know what I mean? I think that's very, self-centered, like. Why couldn't it be a solar system? Why does it have to be us being the center? Why couldn't it be that's just the way it was made, or that's just the way it is? And you know what I mean? Like,
God could have made multiple. That's right.
Yeah, possible, right? Possible, or whatever entity. Like, it doesn't have to be God. It could be multiple things or one thing. I don't know. Like, that's just the way I am, because I'm open-minded to something happened. I don't know. Fuck.
Gotcha.
But so, you see where I'm coming at?
I do.
So that's why, that is, we're getting sidetracked. And that is why people are like, oh, this is teaching us something. This is teaching us that we don't know everything. This is this moving star, and eventually now they created the telescope, and then they could actually observe it better, and then realize, hey, look, this planet, or now we're going to call it a planet, because we don't know anything, because we've been calling it planets, is that I'm taking it. So they're just sticking with that word now. Mm-hmm. Or Jupiter, like, oh, well, people have been calling it Jupiter, so we're going to just call it Jupiter, or Mars, or Venus, right?
So, but why? Because science now knows that at some point that we were worshiping,
but it's
as a god, as a power, as an entity.
Well, what I'm saying is that people, like, when science come about, now they're just like, they're not even looking at a religious standpoint, but they have a name for it. They're not going to rename it because it's already named. So they might not even look at it as a religious or worshiping someone prior, yeah. But it's kind of like words, right? Like words that we come up with. So the word fag was what? Originally a bundle of sticks, right? Am I right? Yeah. Now it's a derogatory word towards a person's preference, right? So that could be I'm trying to correlate. That could be the reason why they still call it Jupiter or Mars, because it was in history called that, and they're just going with it. I'm sure it was that's what I'm saying. So that's why they're just sticking with it. So not necessarily they're worshiping it or whatever. They're just like, well, it's been named Jupiter, so we're just gonna we're just keeping
Stick
it as
with it.
Jupiter, right? Versus like, what's the Greek version of Mars? The god of war, not Hades, but Ares.
Yes.
All right, so I don't know, Ares, Mars. Mars sounds like a planet. I don't know, but it could have been possible that our planets would have been named Aphrodite. I mean, you know what I mean?
Of other
the
terms,
gods'
yeah.
names of the Greek gods' names, right? Because they were worshiping those planets as Greek gods, but.
So do you think?
But later on, like once science and once Galileo, risked his life to like, hey, we're not that special, guys, in the sense of we're not the center of the universe. We're actually orbiting around the Earth, and this explains why these wandering stars make these patterns. Now he could correlate why are they making these patterns, because now when he figured out the solar system, it's like everything's orbiting at a different type of speed and different distance. So it's teaching them something. I guess that's what they mean by they taught us. But it could
they
be
were
because
learning from.
They were learning science or whatever. They're learning astronomy,
Okay.
not astrology, because that's totally different. That's just like your whatever,
Cloud.
like my future or whatever. But horoscope and stuff like that. We're not. That's totally different. Talking about astronomy. So that's why I came to terms with like, oh, that makes sense to me, because it's like, yeah, before we didn't know. If you didn't know, you wouldn't know what to call it or what you give it a name, and then later on when generations are learning this stuff and then they realize, hey, there's something different about this. Let's study this more and more and more. Then they end up keeping the name, but then the meaning of it totally is not what it was originally meant for when they're worshiping something, right? It's just like, that's just the name. After 100, 200 years, you're not really, maybe they're not really thinking of it a religious way. Now they're just studying it. And they're like, oh, this is why it's wandering. Because it's in our solar system and it doesn't follow all these other stars.
I definitely believe that is what a lot of scientists and people that study science fully believe. I don't believe or think that the majority of modern scientists are intentionally trying to worship fallen angels. So I don't want to put that out there that I feel like that the majority of people are. But and we're gonna wrap it up soon.
Okay.
Do you believe that there is a Satan or an opposition to God or the Creator?
Ooh, and I've never come across or been told that question, so this would be riffing right now off my top of my head.
And I obviously only asked that question to set up another question.
Yeah. Do I believe in Satan? I guess.
And you don't even have to use the term Satan. You can say in opposition to the
good
Creator.
and bad.
Life.
Yeah, it's called our life right now. I guess they would have to an opposite of what God is, because you can't have only good, because you wouldn't know what good is without the bad, right? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Like you couldn't have you can have light without darkness. It had, because you wouldn't even know if darkness would be light or dark.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it. So
you would lean more towards the side of
if there's a force of nature or a force of something being that is good, I guess I might have to lean that there has to be something that is opposed to that. That kind of logically makes sense to me, because if it's all good, we couldn't decide what is good and bad, I guess. But again, that goes a whole nother deeper level.
A whole different deeper level.
Yeah.
With that knowledge
yeah.
that it's a possibility, because
Yeah,
I'm not going to say that it's a fact. So I don't want to push that. But if it's a possibility for there to be an opposition to God, the Creator.
Yeah.
If there's an opposition, and there are definitely people that choose to want to worship God, the Creator.
For sure.
Has there been people in history,
of course,
that purposely would want to worship?
Yeah, of course, man.
So
people are human, so they.
With that
rebellious.
being with that knowledge, with that knowing,
yeah,
is it possible that the people that were worshiping false gods purposely wanted to continue to get other people to worship in those same?
Wait.
Oh no. What were we at? All right, sorry guys.
I am like,
Sorry guys, our YouTube video got jacked up because.
Oh, is it back on?
Well, I'm recording, so our YouTube channel or YouTube video got jacked up. So this was our backup. Thank God I recorded our conversation.
Yeah.
And
What comment was I making? I was setting you up for a knockout.
Yeah.
You were asking if you believed in Satan.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That was the question I asked. Sorry.
Set me up for a knockout.
I thought I was, but
Let's go.
maybe not. No, honestly, the question was because we do got to wrap it up still. But the question was, do you believe in opposition to God? And you said, more,
Yeah,
you said you
I
would lean
would
towards
have-
yes.
yeah.
So, and then I said, do you believe that there are followers of the opposition? So, would you
Would
Satan
try
or
to
the
persuade
devil
people
would
to
try to
worship.
persuade people
Yes.
to also continue worshiping
Yes.
the devil
Yes.
or Satan or whatever
Yes.
term that you. So,
Knowingly though, if it's just like if a Jehovah's Witness or if I go to Catholic Church or any type of religion wanted me to join their faith, I would knowingly do it, and I am participating in doing it, knowing like I am worshiping that entity, right? But go ahead.
So no, I don't think it's knowingly. Like I'm
Okay.
100%
Yeah.
emphatically believe that they don't want to do it knowingly. For example, it's what is it called? Not merging. There's a smarter term for it than merging. Two different faiths together. So, for example, it was a known thing that during Roman time that the Romans worshipped Mithra, right?
Okay.
Well, no, I mean, maybe you didn't know it.
Yeah.
But it was a known thing. That was their god. Their sun god was Mithra. So when they took over
This is Roman?
Rome,
Okay.
so this is during Christ's time, the Romans worshipped Mithra, and then when Christ came and there was Christians that were worshiping Christ, the Romans, they said, okay, well look, we can't get them to worship our God. We can't get them to worship Mithra. So what we'll do is we'll meld our religions together. We'll get them to worship Mithra by telling them, by doing this and just subscribing Christ's name to it. So that's why Christmas is a pagan worship. It's actually Mithraism. The Romans were worshiping or practicing Saturnalia, which was giving homage to their god Saturn. But they said, okay, well look, we can't tell the Christians that they're going to worship and practice Saturnalia, so we're just going to change the name. So they were doing the exact same practices and customs. They just changed the name to a Christian term to make it acceptable.
So if
That's trickery. That's deceit.
Yeah, okay, that is. But then why? Okay, so like the Vatican and all these people that this is
So
open knowledge.
I believe that they know.
They know.
I believe the hierarchy of people in power know that they are worshiping Satan. When I say the hierarchy, I'm talking about the Pope, the high Catholic priests. I believe like the local pastors, I don't believe that they know. I believe that they may be ignorant, which simply means that they don't know.
They just been not told. I mean, okay.
So I think by the hierarchy of people who are in power and who are in control, who knowingly worship Satan, their job and their focus is to teach the masses to ignorantly worship Satan. So they get lower level teachers to believe the lie and then teach them to teach that lie to others. So now the people that are teaching the lies to the masses, they believe what they're teaching. So like the same conversations that I would have with you or anyone else, I would have with a pastor. Hey, well, pastor, did you know that Christmas is not Christ's birthday and it was actually originated as a pagan worship?
Yeah, what did it say?
Most of them,
I
they
do.
either don't know or they don't care. But again, the only reason why they don't care is because I've had some of them tell me this. Well, my teacher, now their teacher is a high-level theologian, usually a high-level Mason, who's also normally a Jewish person, which that's a whole nother conversation as well. Like they're just repeating what they've been taught at school, not necessarily what they've studied or what they've researched themselves.
Yeah, this is gonna be hard for me to interject only because I didn't go to a school or a Catholic school for me to be like, well, they said this or say that. But
something like, yeah, I probably went. I mean, that was kind of very, very far, but something very, I don't want to say kind of low level or simplistic. Sunday worship. So the Bible, the fourth commandment is to honor the Sabbath. Like no person that reads the Bible disagrees with the 10 commandments.
Okay.
The 10th commandment is to honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. Like that's supposed to be the day of worship, right? And it also, in that same scripture, it says that the Sabbath is the 7th day. If you were to look at a calendar, what's the 7th day of the week?
Sunday? No, I'm not assuming. Saturday.
Saturday, right?
You only think of Sunday because it's like,
Yeah.
work day is Monday. You think it's the first day of the week.
So,
but Saturday, Sunday. So it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So Saturday would be
Saturday is the 7th day of the week.
Yeah.
So, according to the Bible, the holy day of worship, the Sabbath, is Saturday. But what?
Wait, in the Bible, did they call it Monday?
No,
Tuesday, Wednesday?
it was one day, 1, 2, 3. It was counted. The only thing that was
So how do we know what day?
our calendar is wrong. We follow the Enoch calendar. That's a whole other conversation as well. I have the correct calendar, but it's.
Do you?
Yes,
You?
yes.
You sure?
I believe
Are
I
you
do.
sure?
Remember, I have the Enoch calendar.
Okay, that's right. How do we know what's the correct calendar? My calendar is the Mayan calendar, all right? No,
They
I'm
were
kidding.
very pretty close.
Okay.
But that's something that's simple that it's easy. Just look at it. What's the 7th day of the week? Saturday. Okay, the Bible and 10 Commandments says that the Sabbath is Saturday. So why do Christian pastors hold Sunday as a day of worship? Then their answer is because the Catholic Church said that we can do it and said that we should do it. That's their answer.
Huh.
So you're upholding the Catholic Church higher than you're upholding the Bible. But that's not what a preacher or a person that upholds the Bible is supposed to do. Are you supposed to uphold man? Or are you supposed to uphold the Bible? And the Vatican in writing has said that we changed the Sabbath. They acknowledge it. They admit it.
I can't go against you there. That's facts, right? I mean,
You
if
guys have wrapped this
they
up.
change.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I almost gave up. But anyway, so I'll say this. So this was going to be posted up on YouTube. I definitely want to thank my brother Victor.
Yes, sir.
For
What's not finished though?
yeah, we're definitely
We
not
got
done.
Part 2. We're gonna go into a little bit more. 'Cause it's just a long podcast or a long conversation. We all know how it can get extensively, just interjecting into so many things. Like I want to talk about meteors and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Is that God throwing rocks at us or
Definitely was getting our attention. No, I'm joking.
So there is a lot of questions I do have, but that could be a part 2.
I definitely hope that people like what we're saying, but and the purpose of the conversation, I just want to be clear, is not necessarily to convert, but to educate and to get people to seek the truth themselves. Like I said, I don't claim to be, a person that knows everything or have all the answers. Again, the name of my YouTube channel is Seeking Truth. And the reason why I call it that is because that's for 30 years of my life, I just believed whatever someone who I thought was in a position of authority told me. And when I finally started asking the question, well, why?
Yeah.
Or does that make sense? I started learning a lot of the things that I was told to believe as true or as fact were complete lies.
Right.
So,
and then that's why you actually got into studying it yourself, reading it, actually translating it also.
Yep.
Right? So, obviously, I have no knowledge in religion, and I don't even think you even call it religion, do you?
No.
No. So, but I don't have any knowledge in this field, basically, and only from hearsay and what I've seen on TV or the internet. But I'm definitely want to hear out my brother in explaining this stuff because it's very intriguing, and these are things that I didn't know, and it's great to understand both sides. Because when growing up, we've only been told this one position or one-sided story, and no one's really, or I haven't really questioned a priest or a father or anything like that, but Antonio here has studied, and I'm gonna believe him because he's put a lot of work in his book, and I don't even know what to say, man. I want you to keep continuing what you're doing. I might not believe everything because I still believe in planets, but I think it's good work what you're doing. To be honest, I've seen it change your life, and man, keep doing what you're doing because you're doing great. I mean, we've known each other for a long time, so
Yeah, man.
I'm super proud of you.
Thank you, man. It's gonna make me. Good thing we're not video recording because I might get a little teary eyed right now.
Yeah.
But
I'm a little teary-eyed myself.
But no, thank you for anyone that watches or listens.
Yes. Also, please leave a comment below if you kind of understand what I was trying to say, and maybe you could explain it to me in a different way that maybe Antonio couldn't explain it. That may me see from a different point of view, because how I explain about the planets and the wandering stars and stuff like that, it is very factual to me. But if you guys could somehow refer me to something or I don't know, link me to another link or just explain it, I'd be open ears for it,
Likewise.
So, yeah, and if you could convince him otherwise, I'm down for that too.
I'll listen.
Yeah, and that'd be great. Awesome. Until next time.
Shalom, which means peace in Hebrew.
And peace. Good night, everybody.